to your point, the messaging, like where does the content steer you, and what's the objective with the content? And a lot of times you look at just the food industry in general, and it's about taste, it's about shelf life, it's about and again, one of the things I don't think we have to be biochemists to learn how, and I'm talking to myself when I share this, David, to learn how to look at labels and see if you can't pronounce the ingredients, then it's not food, right? It's chemical.
This empowerment phase is being ripped out of us by this gaslight that we see across literally every sphere of a human can view on the media at some point. It has to be given back to some central control. You can no longer have autonomy of your own. Good afternoon, everyone. Trying to bring you the brightest minds as we move through this, change that we're seeing across the world today. Jeff Hooks, CEO and president of Victory Nutrition International, here's to join me. We're coming into the holidays. We're going to be eating different foods, talking about digestion, keeping yourself healthy through this, couple months of solid pounding food, partying, drinking, going out, doing a lot of things you don't do through the rest of the year. Plus, some stipulations coming in like food. I'm still working on the story. I want to bring it to you here in the next video or so. Tesco in England is now going to limit your monthly purchases, even though you're paying for the program like Costco or Sam's Club. In addition to preventing you from buying a certain amount of product per month or per visit, they're also setting into motion an algorithm so you can't visit an additional extra Tesco store outside in a different area and just buy from them. So their entire system is going to be linked to limit you and also implement a carbon credit usage and utilization for each bit of meat or whatever product you buy. It'll assign a score. It's just the beginning of what we're seeing for the control of food. And the changing nutrient contents in our food is just becoming atrociously devoid of anything that is life-sustaining. So stick around to the end. We're going to talk about some ideas as we move through the holidays and also some tips and tricks on trying to stay healthier during these times when generally, we let ourselves go because it's the holidays. It's required that you let yourself go so you can get retuned again after the year starts. So Jeff, appreciate you joining me. I'll let you take it in any direction you want, but it does seem that our holidays are pushing us into bad behavior, and the foods that are being offered now compared to when you and I were kids are just incredibly different in nutrition content, taste, the chemicals that are in there to give it different flavors so you want to continue to eat it. And everywhere you look, everything is just so much more heavily processed. Even what you see something, a turkey in a package, it's wrapped in plastic. Great. So I guess I'll start it there and we can go anywhere we want though. Jeff, floor is yours.
Hey, thank you so much, David. Pleasure to be with you today and appreciate all your work over the years. And so, it's interesting. The holiday season is there's a lot to be thankful for, right? Typically, it's also a challenging time when we've lost loved ones, but from a physical and a wellness perspective, I think you articulated it so well. It's a challenge, right? I think that the normal cycle is to prepare to overindulge through especially heading into Thanksgiving all the way through New Year's, and then set those infamous New Year's resolutions, in early January. And obviously the gyms and I belong to a gym, but the gyms and athletic clubs count on us doing that, right? Overindulging during the holiday season, feeling bad about it, saying, all right, New Year's resolution, we're going to re-engage. I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to work out. I'm going to exercise. And then all of a sudden, gym memberships explode in January, and in February they're empty, right? So I think, to your point, it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, I think in our modern diet, packaged processed foods, are not designed for our wellness. And so I think it's a matter of taking responsibility, which is very much of the content and the education that you share with me and the rest of your audience. It's about taking responsibility. And so we think there's some very simple strategies and tactics that I think we're going to unpack a little bit today that can help all of us heading into the holiday season, maybe not get so far behind and not get so far off track so that those New Year's resolutions, we don't have to make up so much ground.
Yeah, it's interesting for on a couple points, and I might be politically incorrect. So if you like that type of story, just stay right here because when we go into in the holidays, the other 10 months of the year, they're telling you diet, stay in shape, not so much salt, limit your fats, do this, you're going to be healthier. But then the last 2 months, it's like eat as much as you can. Turkeys are on sale. Get the extra pumpkin pie. And it's the very same thing with global warming. And don't do this. You got to limit your footprint. You can't do this. But buy two, they're on sale. Got to get 6 Christmas gifts. You got to ultra buy this year. Everybody needs 3 gifts from you, but global warming. So, these mixed messages that go completely off the rails for the last 2 months of the year. I'd like to point that out to everybody. And please just do an assessment what you're seeing of this occurring. So notice it every time it occurs. Global warming, buy 2. Stay healthy, buy 2 turkeys, sure, buy a fatty pumpkin pie. Awesome. Yeah, and you got to think about how many levels deep that goes through society on messaging and preventativeness or not. There's this whole skewed world that we're looking at with the way our bodies are supposed to function too.
Yeah, it's so true. My oldest son, I was just in Nashville to celebrate his birthday this past weekend, and we were talking about to your point, the messaging, like where does the content steer you, and what's the objective with the content? And a lot of times you look at just the food industry in general, and it's about taste, it's about shelf life, it's about and again, one of the things I don't think we have to be biochemists to learn how, and I'm talking to myself when I share this, David, to learn how to look at labels and see if you can't pronounce the ingredients, then it's not food, right? It's chemical, right? And so much of our packaged foods are processed foods, GMO. It's fake food, and to the degree that we can make better choices, some of the things that you and I talked about pre-show, to the degree that we can take responsibility for our health and do some little things in terms of daily habits, focus on movement. Even you don't even have to go to the gym. Like walking 30 minutes a day is a game changer. There's all kinds of credible research that shows the impact. Just your circulatory system, your digestion, sleep, stress management. Of course, they're all connected. Drinking, plenty of pure water. Keyword is pure water. And it's just little things that we can do to manage our daily lives and put us in a position where even heading into the holidays, we're not going to be so far off track. And then if we choose to indulge, have a big meal, overeat for Thanksgiving, but then take a really slow 10, 15-minute walk, sometime after that to get the blood flowing and the circulation. And so that's my belief. And I think it's empowering for all of us, David, to think about, I can take control. And like you said, the intentionality, the awareness of the messaging that steered me towards that chocolate cake, that steered me towards that 2 for 1 or 3 for 1, and overeating and overindulging, and just some simple decision-making habits that we can, I'll choose this instead of that. I'll choose A instead of B. And all of a sudden we start to realize that we are empowered to live healthier lifestyles and make better decisions with our daily walk, if you will. So I'm in agreement.
Yeah, and that comes to that empowerment issue as well, because this mixed messaging that we continually receive across all airwaves about just everything in daily life that can be given: peace, war, abundance, deficit, everything that we're looking at in terms of how our world is structured right now. It seems that this empowerment phase is being ripped out of us by this gaslight that we see across literally every sphere of a human can view on the media at some point. It has to be given back to some central control. You can no longer have autonomy of your own, even closest thing to you, your body. It has to be observed in profession and advice given by a professional. You're not even allowed or supposed to try to assess like what's wrong with yourself and how to try to improve it. You have to go to a professional to tell you exercise. That's ridiculous. You should know that you need to exercise to stay healthier, but they're like, no, you have to go see a clinician, a physician, you got to have a trainer. You have to do this. Wait, dude, just go exercise. Just like you say, go walk for 30 minutes. Like this ripping of our empowerment out to give it to centralized control is also another huge thing that, plugs right into this. And I hope people can see through the illusion of how we're almost being trained as such, where you're not allowed to rely on anything of your own thought capacity any longer. And I wonder if that goes in with the algorithm that always steers you away into the professional will tell you what to do.
It's so true. And, and think about like little things, like you and I've talked about this in the past as we were getting to know each other over the summer. It's just think about like grounding, and I'm not an expert. That's not our business, but earthing or grounding, if your viewers haven't checked it out, there's so much, the reality in today's modern environment, particularly if you're in a big city or, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. So in a suburb of Charlotte, how frequently do we actually walk in the backyard, or are we on the earth, grass or ground, barefoot? And there's significant research that shows that it boosts the immune system, reduces inflammation, et cetera. And not, again, not this, kind of wackadoodle out, somebody on an island did research. It's like very credible that earthing it boosts the immune system. Walking, just again, like you said, it doesn't have to be with a physical trainer. You don't need to buy a bunch of equipment for your home. We don't have to buy a gym membership. You can if you want to, but just walking, just moving a little bit, just gardening, whatever your passionate hobby is. We're heading into the winter. Just take steps. If you're going to the second floor of an office building for an appointment or a restaurant, take the steps instead of an elevator. There's little things that we can all do. And again, I'm looking at myself in the mirror, Dave. These are things that I remind myself of consistently. Some days I do well, and some days I don't do as well. But there's things that we can do that will improve quality of life. Because I think one of the challenges, with all due respect to our healthcare system, it's what I'm interested in is living, not just living longer, but living better. And I believe that by taking responsibility for my health, again, focusing on good sleep, that's when our body restores and repairs, when we sleep. And so I know that when I move during the day, they're all connected, these things that we're talking about. When I move during the day, I sleep better at night. Now, there's some nights if I'm wrestling with a personal or business issue that I might not sleep as well. We all do that. But to the degree we can position our environment to sleep well, the body repairs itself and heals itself, and then we're ready for the new day. And so I think all these things are connected, and a lot of what we're going to talk about can maybe add value to that vision and that desire if it resonates.
Yeah, because I'll say one thing. A lot of times people are trying new foods that are offered during holiday time, and it just doesn't agree with them, or they're like, it made me something itchy and my belly doesn't seem right. I don't know, that food just didn't agree with me. And then they're finding that their body responded to that. Not just in your opinion, do you think that's more of something that came through the intestine walls, or do you think it's something where, people just do truly have reactions to that? Or is it chemicals that are in the food that are prepared? Because I know, the amount of glyphosate that's rolling around in our just general food system now, they're using it as a drying agent in the fields to speed that up so they don't have to send it through the dehydrators. I mean, that's directly on the finished product they're sending to market at that point. So I'm just wondering, what's that ratio of it? Like, the body really can reject things. I know some people have allergic to strawberries or peanuts, this sort of thing, nut allergies, shellfish allergies. Those are a real deal. But in terms of like how much of that is toxins that are coming in that are actually affecting the gut biome and that sort of thing. And that's more how to protect yourself as well. And I guess I'm asking like 5 questions there, but I hope you can understand the idea.
Yeah, it's about, ultimately, David, in response, it's about metabolism. And that's one of the things. I'm a business guy, so I'm not a scientist, but I'm surrounded by scientists and people a lot smarter than me in the nutraceutical space, biochemists who work with the body. One of our co-founders is a homeopath and working with the body and in what we call foundational health instead of navigational health. And that might be a whole other conversation, but foundational health is working with the body. We believe the body can do amazing things when it's given the proper resources. And so to your point, the purpose of metabolism is to make energy, cellular energy, maintain energy, and eliminate waste, that detox that you referenced. And if you look at the food that most of us are consuming because it's the only thing that's around us, it's processed food, it's chemicals, we're overfed and undernourished, and that's it's a reality. We're overfed and undernourished, and so we're getting the calories, but we're not getting the nutrients. We're not getting the macro, the micronutrients, the nutrients, the raw food, the phytonutrients. Most of us are not eating real food, God grown food. And so our gut health, tying back into one of your questions and statements, is so true. Our microbiome, our gut health. Gut health is often referred to, the gut, our microbiome ecosystem, if you will, is referred to as the second brain, because the brain gut connection is irrefutable. So when we've got distress in the microbiome, in the gut, with our digestion, and that could be, like you said, from overeating, it could be from the chemicals, the preservatives, the toxins that are in the food supply, and a lot of the packaged foods that we eat, a lot of the foods that we eat at restaurants, even nice restaurants, with all due respect to the big companies, I won't mention names, but these are packaged foods with a lot of chemicals, a lot of preservatives that were not designed to give our bodies nutrition and promote wellness. And so our bodies have to get rid of that. You think about the job of our digestive system, it's to determine, it's supposed to take not us, right? We eat something, the body knows, all right, that's not Jeff, that's not David, that's not your audience. And the body the digestive system has to determine and separate the good not us from the bad not us. And then the good not us, it's got to assimilate into the bloodstream and where we can absorb those nutrients. And the bad not us, it's got to quarantine and get rid of. And so it's a big job. And so to the degree that we can support gut health and, again, healthy eating, fiber, raw foods as best we can, and augmenting with proper supplementation, you can do amazing things to allow your body to utilize the nutrients and get rid of the bad stuff.
Yeah, because you'd sent me the N-Sorb digestion here, and I really like the packaging where it says revitalize your metabolism. Again, it's all about getting that absorbed into the body here. And thank you for that very much. As you can see, there's only, I think, 1 or 2 left in here. And I use them if I've been eating heavy and I wasn't doing any fasting, there's just a few left in there. So generally, if I eat too much food, it'll be like I can feel it. I'm just getting sloggy and I need to fast or do something like that. But generally, when it'll be like I've eaten too much, because living on a farm, this is one thing, just on a FYI personal note here. We raise our own geese and ducks and chickens, and we have taken them from egg through the last year or two, depending on how old they are, if they were good egg layers, depending. But now we're starting to harvest a lot at the end of the year here, and we have an abundance of food, like tremendously large amounts of like protein sources. We're getting a full hog slaughtered. That'll be here on the 21st from the Amish. We still have part of our 1,200-pound Angus cow from just before the summer that we had. We got lamb in the freezer. We have some fish there from the pond that we are down and get some bass fishing on our pond here. But we always have an enormous amount. So sometimes we overeat. We got to make room in the freezer. We're going to go out and, do like 12 chickens this next weekend or something. Like, oh, we got to let's eat a little more. We need some space in the freezer. But once your body gets to that oversaturation point, we're like, I'm full. I don't even know if I want to eat any kind of dinner. We had a big lunch. And then into the next day, you're like, I still feel full from, the last 3 or 4 days of eating goose and duck and thing. And then I just kind of take a break and I don't want to eat anything today. But while I'm going through my day of just water and like molasses and honey water and these sort of things, I will definitely drop one of these in a little pack and take it out of there. And I find it does help absorb clean. I don't know the effect that I'm trying to describe, but I come out much cleaner at the end of that, especially going just with liquids, like say honey liquids, just like I say, with some sort of lemon juice and put some molasses in there, backstrap molasses. That's also made over at the Amish farm there, just to clean out. Because if you get too much in there, I don't think your body's able to process cleanly and even break anything down, because it's just oversaturated. So everything's just working as hard as it can, but then there's more food on top of that.
It's so interesting. I'm smiling because as I listen to you, so first of all, I love the fact that I am envious of the talk about, leading by example, but the protein sources that you're growing and sustaining yourself is amazing. And I'm smiling also because, you mentioned the Amish. We've got an 11-year track record with in business, and one of our largest customer segments are the Amish and the Plain people communities from across the country, and it just resonates with that message of taking responsibility for your health. But to your point on the N-Sorb side, it's really interesting. The whole purpose behind this product, and it dovetails to kind of a lot of what we're talking about, is most of us don't eat enough raw, live food, living food. Now in your case, your situation's is I would say optimal, but it's not just what we eat when it comes to protein sources; it's what they eat, right? So it's not just we are what we eat, but we are what they eat, and so whether it be the cows or the chickens or whatever the animal is, and so the interesting thing about enzymes have been called the spark plug of life, and I'm not just talking digestive enzymes, which is part of what N-Sorb is. But this is really metabolic enzymes. And so the idea is, just real quickly, is every bodily function is dependent on enzymes. And our bodies don't produce enzymes. So we have to get enzymes from raw living food and clean food. And so if we're not getting those enzymes, we have a depletion in our enzyme reserve. And so what we created with N-Sorb is a way to restore and replenish body's natural enzymes. And so, it's a product that we're very proud of. We've got a double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical study on the finished product that showed a boosted immune system and immune strength for all the participants. And actually, interestingly enough, David, improved sleep. So what I've started doing, there's no way to take it wrong. You can take it anytime you want during the day, but I take it right before I go to bed. And so I know it's restoring those enzymes while I sleep and helping the body repair so I get ready for the next day. But that's again, I believe nothing replaces good, clean eating or cleaner eating, depending on where we live, just making better food choices. But I do believe that augmenting and supplementing with high performing nutritional supplements is key, just to make sure that you're getting that foundational health and getting those nutrients that your body needs. So,
yeah, just it swings off into, where do you find food anyway? I mean, most people say the grocery store, dude. But again, where does that food source come from? Again, come back with some accountability or traceability, because the guy I get my meats from, I was talking to him the other day, and he was saying that he also in turn buys lambs from a lady a couple miles away from here that does more on the commercial end, because this time of the year, lamb's very popular. So when they're sending it up to the butcher up there to do things, they generally like double the amount of lambs that are required or requested for this 2 months of the year here. But since he does a lot of the preparation on his farms before they rack them out and then take them up on hanging weight up to the butcher, he's like, the livers, you should have seen the livers on the, it's just like the second time I bought them from this lady, the livers are really spotty. Like the livers we get on our geese and our ducks, I mean, it's the most perfect, most beautiful livers you've ever seen. And I know that sounds like a weird statement, but not a blemish on it. No white spot, nothing, just perfect. And the same with the lambs over at this guy's place. When he does his own lambs, they grow, first of all, they grow their own heirloom corn, non-GMO variety that's been around, just like wild, not really wild corn, but a corn that they have chosen that they grow on their own place. They wild grow their own hay, and they don't spray it, and that's what they finish them on. So the whole chain being able to produce that meat is super clean. But the lady up the street is sort of the opposite. She's very factory style. Jabs them up when they're a couple, 2-3 times during their life, always on like just 1 ton delivered factory food kind of thing. They're rotated through a little bit differently, but the livers on these things they looks like just white spot after white spot after white spot. And he was like, that's really weird how the livers are so damaged on the ones that were commercially raised up there. But, we were talking about, so imagine about livers with an Amish guy, like, kind of the exists out here once you get off that commercial supply chain. And you might laugh at that and go, this guy's talking about livers with the Amish guy. But you can see a distinct, absolutely unbelievable, mind-bending difference in a coloration and damaged on those livers that are run through on the commercial side versus the regular side, heirloom, whatever you want to call that. just naturally raised side, pure, absolutely non-blemished, just perfect. You can actually eat those livers. That's why we went away from eating liver. I don't know if you remember if your grandma cooked up liver like ours did, but livers were different 50 years ago. I think that's the reason maybe they stopped selling it in the store. They could never find a pretty one any longer because it's always blemished and dotted and discolored from whatever goes in that it's trying to clean out, mentioning that whole cleaning and filtration process in a long way.
And I think about your listeners that are part of the community like me, being in a big city, and it's sometimes it's overwhelming for us to think about. Hey, you absorb this good information, David, from you and the experts that you have on your show consistently. You say, how can I apply that into my life? Well, I'll give a perfect example. I didn't know this, but within this year, sometime earlier this year, my natural doc, who's a nutritionist and chiropractor and really educated on kind of how the body works and prevention, et cetera. And she did a little workshop that I plugged into with some of her clients and patients and customers. And she was talking about eggs. So I go to my Publix or even Whole Foods, wherever I go here in Charlotte. And we know, you look at the pack, there's a bunch of nonsense in there. I mean, there's a lot of just products that it's not all whole food, right? With all due respect, it's not all good for us. And so I'm like, we started talking about eggs, and there's so many different SKUs, David, and there's so many different versions of eggs. What's healthy? And she shared with me, and I didn't do the research, so I'm just passing along, but she said pasture raised eggs are the cleanest and the best. And there's all kinds of different iterations that aren't pasture raised that I'm not going to even try to memorize. But so now I just made that simple adjustment in our, because I eat eggs almost every day. And so I eat pasture raised eggs now. And I know that that's cleaner than what I was doing before, so there's one little hack that's a step in the right direction, like you said. So I think knowledge is power, and then of course applying that knowledge is where the real benefits come from.
Yeah, and the flip-flop in science too. I mean, I know you're really on the science edge, and you have an enormous amount of people doing like running tests and just trying to wire this absorption thing out, where a lot of supplements go wrong. As you get the supplement in there, but it just kind of passes through, and you get a percentage of absorption. Where I know the whole thing at Victory Nutrition International is trying about getting as much possible absorption down to really nothing wasted, where it all gets absorbed in. Because think about cholesterol. How many times have they told us through our lives, cholesterol bad, no cholesterol good, no cholesterol bad, now cholesterol is good. You got to have eggs, because if you don't have the cholesterol, your arteries or whatever capillaries can't repair themselves because they need cholesterol. Like all these mixed messages, but it's really coming down to one thing, like the absorption of everything. That's what the digestive tract is supposed to do anyway, break down that food and absorb as many nutrients out to give you that, power you need to run through your day, whatever your, day is.
Yeah, it is. So that's what we, one of the things, what separates us, one of the things we're real proud of, the founder of our company, and he went to heaven way too early, but in my opinion, I'm not challenging God's timing, but way too early for me and those that loved him. But he was a biochemist, researcher, formulator. And so the whole, one of the differentiators in a very crowded space of our company, I call them the 4 pillars. Number one is all of our formulas are proprietary multi-ingredient formulas. So they're designed and built in-house for a specific purpose, for foundational health. And again, foundational versus navigational. Navigational is, and there's a place for it, but navigational health is pharmaceutical, it's surgical intervention, and it's kind of course correcting in a very focused way without necessarily factoring in the whole ecosystem of the body and how the body's going to respond, across the whole body instead of one isolated area. And so foundational health takes a look, which is what I think all really solid, credible nutraceutical companies should do. It's looking at the entire ecosystem of the body. And our approach, again, is real simple. We believe the human body can do amazing things if it's given the proper nutrients, the raw materials, to heal itself, to prevent issues, to get rid of issues in terms of detox. And so in order to do that, you need somebody that really kind of knows what they're doing to create the formulas. And with all due respect, 99% of all the nutritional supplements out there in the market are created from contract manufacturers. And I think it's important for your viewers and listeners to understand that. And again, there's some good products, definitely, but there are a lot of empty products as well. And so what happens is, an entrepreneur or an executive will go to a contract manufacturer and they'll say, "Hey, we want a product for fill in the blank, immune health, pre-workout, post-workout, brain health." Nootropic and brain health is a big category now, and that contract manufacturer will take a recipe book conceptually off the shelf, and they'll go to the same formula they've sold to 250 other companies, and they might adjust one or two ingredients or the amounts of one or two ingredients, and then that company will private label it and launch it as a cutting edge proprietary formulation. So we said, no, we're going to choose a different path. So proprietary formulations created in-house, premium ingredients, because it's still, the recipe is important, but if we choose the wrong, inferior ingredients to complete that recipe, you're going to have a bad product and not have a desired result. And so we only use premium ingredients. Many of our ingredients have patents and clinical studies backing them. They're very expensive ingredients, but that was something that we don't compromise on at all, and that was part of our founder's original vision. And then coming full circle to your point, the third pillar is the absorption technology, and it's one of our taglines is nutrition that gets in. We've got a proprietary absorption technology called proteasoming, but proven in clinical studies to get in, and the main point to communicate there is, what's on the label is important. The premium ingredients are important, but at the end of the day, it's what our body can absorb and assimilate, ultimately into the bloodstream. That's where you're going to get the impact and the payload of a nutritional supplement. And so we've got a proprietary absorption technology that's part of all of our products. We were going to patent it, and we decided to pull the patent. That's a conversation maybe for another day, and keep it as a trade secret. And then really our fourth pillar, just to close the loop, is we've got over 40 peer-reviewed published clinical studies on our finished products. And that's extremely rare in the nutritional supplement space for a lot of reasons. It's very expensive. It also, candidly, a lot of companies will not, even if they have the resources and the know-how, will not do clinical studies on their finished product because it would reveal that their product is not delivering measurable results. And so, that's, but yeah, the absorption, that's the key. If someone was to say what separates your products from everything else out there, our absorption is the key. The nutrition that gets in is the key. Because again, if you're going to augment, again, nothing replaces healthy eating. But supplementation by design is designed to augment or supplement and fill in those gaps. Well, if you're spending your hard-earned money on filling in gaps, but your body's not able to absorb and assimilate, then you're defeating the purpose. And so that absorption technology is one of the key points to remember for sure.
And you were talking about premium ingredients, and I was laughing, going, imagine putting a Kraft single on top of a filet mignon, or an instant noodle pack of flavoring on top of Russian caviar, like just something ridiculous. Premium, the ingredients put in do have to do with everything on top of that. You can eat incredible processed food that you get a big bag of something, but there's literally zero zero in it. And it would probably anti-absorb, meaning pull out of your body due to whatever else is in it. Like having the absorption technology and having the premium ingredients in, that's something that's totally different. And, since we were talking about exercising and we do have N-Sorb, but also with the trim rocks here. So another big, going to the complete opposite, losing weight or keeping weight off or burning up metabolism, increasing metabolism, and getting that kick started and fired off. Trim rocks. What do we got here? Burn, boost, balance. Again, what are the two largest, or number 1 and 2 and 3 New Year's resolutions? Losing weight, obviously. Starting to exercise. I think this covers both of those.
Yeah. So Trim Rocks is our newest member of the VNI product family, and I love it. And like you said, it's designed to boost burn balance, boost cellular energy. through a nitric oxide effect, which is great for cardiovascular health. Burn stubborn fat. We've got a concept validation study that showed all the participants with measurable reduction in body fat in problem areas. So for me, that's my stomach. For others, it might be their, for certain ladies, for example, it might be their arms or their thighs. And so stubborn fat that accumulates, and then balancing the body's hormones and systems, specifically cortisol, is one of the key, which is the stress hormone. And again, we're heading into the holidays, like we've talked about, David. It's a time where, unfortunately, stress, trying to do it all, trying to, and again, the intentions are noble. I think in most cases, we want to be all things, and we're getting, again, commercialized. It's like one of your first points in our discussion today, paying attention to, what we're being steered towards, and overconsumption, overspending, overeating, over fill in the blanks. And part of that, the byproduct, I think, at least in my own life, is stress. And having that, as you said again earlier in the discussion, that intentionality and that awareness. And so Trimrocks is a tool that's designed to give us resources to deal with that. And so I will share this also. I asked one of our R&D scientists, I said, I'm going to be talking with David today, and can you give me something on Trimrocks that's not normally part of our marketing and messaging, that's in terms of the impact of the product for David's audience and viewers and community. And so this is hot off the press. Trimrocks supports gut health, like we talked about, by providing potent antioxidants that nourish the gut microbiome, helping to reduce inflammation and strengthen the integrity of the intestinal barrier. So that's hot off the press. That's something that we don't normally talk about with Trimrocks, but like you said, and here's the interesting thing. I challenged our R&D team to come up with a delivery system that was unique and fun, and hence the name Trimrocks. We did a special licensing deal. So if anybody remembers a particular popping candy from their youth, it's the exact same technology. So it's got no sugar, but it pops, it's sweet, it's tart cherry grape. And so it's got a great delivery system, which is actually functional, because while you're enjoying the popping, the unique delivery system, I'm not aware of anything else on the market like it. It's actually absorbing, digestion begins in the mouth. So the delivery system actually aids in that speedy absorption that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and you're right. Where is everything pointing us? Because I did go to the supermarket this weekend, because it's coming into kind of a cooler time here where our garden's not as bountiful. A lot of the lettuces are gone. We pulled up all the okra. We're changing everything over right now. So I had to do this sort of in-between supermarket run. And I spent $120 on like 2 bags of groceries. And it really hit me for the first time. Like, wow, that is going to get so expensive. And we bought quality stuff. Again, it wasn't over the top, like, super 5-star. It was just a regular store. It's called BJ's. It was kind of a new one, opened up, sort of like a Costco or Sam's Club, but up this direction for people who live further out in the country, out here, smaller town. And I was just ricocheted off by spending that much money for so few things in the cart. And I was thinking, we grow part of our own. We get, meats far, far cheaper by getting a full animal and then going through that process of going and buying it from the farmer and then arranging it to get it to a butcher. It is so much cheaper. I really like 3 times cheaper to get meats, or maybe 4 times cheaper if you do that whole process by going out to visit them. So our cost for food is completely skewed on the less expensive side, because we're producing our own. Plus we go the route of visiting the farmers, right? So I'm not used to that, going to the supermarket and buying it so much by the pound on a daily, like a lot of people are used to that. So we do it like in this conversion, this overlapping season, and it literally floored me. So I'm thinking, like, what kind of foods are people going to be buying this year? Because it seems to be out in the, the news talking points. There's less this, the housing market, that, whatever. You can go down that route and believe it. Again, it comes out with thought equals reality. So I'm not really into that whole game that they're playing to believe the news feeds. That's their thing. You can believe it if you want. I prefer to stay over here on the abundance side of things and vibrationally higher. But what kind of foods are people going to be buying? That's the whole thing. Is the choices for food that people are being cornered into is just atrocious. It's like a race to the bottom. It's literally a race to the $1 food category with nothing in it. So, I mean, what kind of, I know, to put something with absorption, get a little bit more absorption, keep the water in your, I was trying to shake that to make it look cool, but I messed that up. I can't get it to hold it. It's too much in there with your hydration. What about keeping water in the body for optimal functionality of digestion as well? The food choices, I'm just wondering if the food choices are bad, if there's anything you can really do other than add supplements to it to try to get that get that effect so it'll actually go through the body the way it's supposed to. But keeping hydrated during this time as well is another major, huge, gigantic factor in the effectiveness of your body absorbing foods or even trying to process them correctly. Good food, bad food, ugly food. But I think being able to keep your hydration up is part of that as well.
Yeah.
Again, a long-winded thing to ask a simple question. Need more water in the body? Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? I'm itching to jump in because it's a great point. It's hydration is connect, just like we talked about enzymes. Hydration and dehydration, right, is the source of a lot of states of dis-ease and declining health, if you will. It's in other words, you look at, there's different studies, and I don't know what the exact number is because it's dynamic, but a large percentage of our population is dehydrated. And so we created, and I've got to have a pouch just from, we've created the Performalite, which is our hydration product, as a simple single serve. All of our products taste great, but the whole idea.
Oh, these are super delicious, by the way. I like to mix this with the Protovite Plus. You get sort of the berry side on this, and you get more of the strawberry edge of things on this one. I wouldn't even say strawberry. It's a mix of different fruit flavors, sort of like on the melon / strawberry. It's quite delicious on this too. Yeah, at least for my flavor.
Thank you for that. We actually, unlike the just being candid, because that's who you are and it's who I am too. You look at the packaged food that we were talking about, and these food chemists, like with chips, which have zero nutritional value, like you were talking about. These food chemists are putting chemicals in that actually suppress our body's ability to recognize that, hey, I'm full, and so we have, on the positive side of science, if you will, we've got a flavor scientist who's an expert in using natural, healthy, whole food flavor systems to deliver a great tasting product. So thank you for that feedback. And so, but back to the point that you made on hydration, a lot of times we think that hydration is all about, good, pure, clean water, which it is, but that's only part of it. It's hydration is dependent on the major electrolytes as well, which are minerals that the body needs to function. And especially the big three: there's potassium, there's magnesium, and there's sodium. And so what we say and what I say, and I won't mention the name because they're the 800-pound gorilla, but we created a product. I mean, literally, Dave, and you and I have talked about this offline. I literally challenged our R&D team. I said, we want to create a hydration product that actually is what the big boys pretend to be, and it actually is. And so our Performalite product, our hydrate product, has the magnesium, the potassium, and the sodium. And oh, by the way, most electrolyte companies don't have all three. Most products don't have all three. And then in addition, we added a recovery blend, which is a complex combination of over 30 fruit and vegetable extracts that are part of the formula. And we also added vitamin C. And so it's a powerhouse product that is designed. It's great for, people think a lot of times you think, all right, I don't need a hydration product except in the summer when I'm perspiring. The reality is you need it just as much, potentially arguably more, in cold weather as we're heading into the winter time. And so hydration is critical. It's one of those things, again, we talked about some of these daily habits that I work on in my own daily life, like walking, like a little bit of exercise, try to get some sunshine. That's something I haven't mentioned. Sunshine's important, real sunshine, to allow your body to facilitate vitamin D creation. We talked about the sleep and those things, but hydration is really, really important. Keeping hydrated on a daily basis will keep that immune system boosted, and again, you'll see a big impact. And so it's not just for people that work out, pre-workout, during workout, post-workout, but every day just sipping on a, we like you said, I like to add the Perform Light to ProDivite Plus, but it tastes great. You add it to 6 to 8 ounces of water, shake it up, stir it up. You can add it to a smoothie. You can't do it wrong, So, but get it in your body, and those minerals and electrolytes and will make an impact for sure.
Because currently, what we're seeing right now is a net of control going over, excuse me, what you can eat, what types of foods you can eat, how much of them you are going to be able to eat, and you're going to lose control over the choices you'll have of food in the world that we know now. That is shifting, and it's not going to be a gradual shift over the years. It's going to occur as quickly as anything we've have seen shift in literally like less than a year. We're into this next phase, I guess, like step 2 of the conversion or reorganization of the world. So like the best possible advice to give to somebody, knowing that we're heading in that direction. Now, we're not there yet, and it's not a fear-mongering thing, but all directions and all the messaging process, the next step of control, they're going through super heavy, like we're into a complete banking, finance, housing reforming. And as soon as that is accomplished, and these are kind of overtailing here, the reformation of your access to foods. And when I say that, how much food you can eat, what types of foods you can eat, how much you can purchase every month, the protein sources that you'll be able to eat or not. That's the direction that the world is heading. Thoughts on that as we wrap up here today?
Yeah, David, I think, first of all, I think the awareness of that trending that you've articulated so well is kind of step 1 for me, at least. Step 2 is then recognizing, you know what, I'm empowered. I'm not a victim here. I can make decisions. I can equip myself with truth, with information. And again, part of the massive value of the information that you're delivering on a daily, weekly basis, David, is important. And so what I do is I want to take responsibility for my own health. I want to take responsibility for the food decisions that I make. And then I recognize, again, I'll speak for myself. In Charlotte, North Carolina, I've got access to certain things, and I don't have access to certain things that others, that are different than others in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. And so for me, I would just make the best food decisions I can, be within my budget, eat as clean as I possibly can. And then one of the things that, again, whether it's, we've created with intentionality products at VNI that are designed to allow our customers to gain control over their health. So when you recognize that, all right, it's hard because of a compromised food supply, it's hard to get the nutrition that we need in the foods only. Even though we're trying to eat clean and within budget, we're trying to make better pasture-raised eggs, for example. We're trying to make good decisions. One of the things that you can do is supplement and augment that food, that diet, with good quality nutritional supplements that will bridge that gap, that on a daily basis, you're giving your body the foundational health, the macro, the micronutrients, the phytonutrients that your body needs to be strong, to perform well, and and again, here's what's interesting: a lot of sleep issues that people have is from nutrient deficiencies. So when your body has those minerals, when your body has the phytonutrients and the macro and micronutrients, then it's easier to shut down and sleep and rest and repair. And so, it's all connected. And I think, again, what I try to do when I listen to your show and the different experts you interview, it's if I can take 1 or 2 actionable ideas and incorporate that in while I continue to move forward and learn and grow, then to me, it's that's the way to do it for sure.
Yeah, and please remember, we set up a bundle here called the Gut Bundle, and you can check out that link in the description box below. It's just these 2 here, Trim Rocks and N-Sorb together. BNI.life/civilization. And as we move through this juncture of stress, and a lot of things change during these times because everybody's so distracted with the next 2 months is going to be completely distraction fest, if it already isn't for everybody. So just notice how the messaging is being formatted in a different way to get you to believe one thing during a certain part of the year and completely throw that away, your training, for the latter part of the year. And then again, right after January 1st, we're right back into, oh, you need to learn and it can be concerned about this, but those last 2 months that didn't count. Also the foods that you're going to be putting in your body, and then ways to alleviate the problems that might be associated with those foods. But just enjoy the holidays. It is a great time. I really enjoy eating and having, overindulging. That's part of it as well. Because you got to think about, we are in such a stable part of our civilization that we've really, in the last 8,000 years, have very few times where there's 100 years of stability, where there's always abundant food and resources at fingertips. Through history, this is an anomaly. How it is now, this is way outside the norm. Usually it is the reason they had such great festivals is they were trying to bulk up, fatten up, but enjoy what they'd grown, so they didn't have to store as much, although it's just a sliver, even with all those people eating for weeks. If you're bringing in tons of food off the field, you eating for 2 weeks is going to gobble up 10, 20 pounds of that. But still, the thankfulness of the bounty. And then they also knew how much food they had to get through the winter and what they would need to ration at that time going into winter. We don't ever think of that any longer. But that was the whole reason there were festivals, to bring all the food in at the same time, do an accounting of it, celebrate, prepare for the winter, and then hopefully get through the winter. Because a lot of times back in the past, people starved to death in the winter time. They just didn't have any food. There was no supermarkets. We are so lucky, so blessed. You should be so thankful to be alive right now when we don't have those difficulties. Because over the last 8,000 years, I would say this is probably one or two of the times, except for the Roman era when it was at the apex. We start to see that when there was these warm periods where there was abundant food, medieval warming period, Roman warming period, and then a now. Otherwise, outside those various little dots on the thing, it's usually very difficult. So just enjoy it while you got it, as they would say. But Jeff Hooks, Victory Nutrition International CEO, President, thank you so much for coming on. Any last thought before we jump off?
No, listen, David.
Links in the description box below.
Yeah, look, David, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be with you today, and just appreciate your work so much. So have a blessed day and a great holiday yourself. And again, thank you.
All right. Until next time. Bye for now.